Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. We are down to 14 teams in the NHL as the Pittsburgh Penguins and very shockingly the Tampa Bay Lightning were both swept on Tuesday. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but we'll just cover the games first. But we have some pre-show stuff. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, so I heard Gabe Kapler on WIP this morning. It was interesting because he was talking about a move he made not bunting Michael Franco the other day. He's a third baseman for the Phillies. And the question was broached to him, since you're an analytics guy, can you talk about the analytics of it? And he said the numbers weren't important. And then he just talked about reasons. And reasons, well, the OPS, the guy who was batting behind him, he's hot, so let him swing the bat, yada, yada. If you are an analytics guy on an analytics team and you get asked an analytics question, you should back it up with a analytics answer and numbers and everything else, so people don't think that it's all just hocus pocus, because it doesn't really aid to what you're doing when you avoid that part of the answer. And so like that, I felt was a great disservice to the fan base, because it's like, well, now you just sort of muddied up the picture of it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and like I told you before the show, I've been reading a little bit of this book by Bob Klapisch on the Yankees. I think it's called Inside the Empire, but I've just been reading it, not memorizing the title. But it goes into a lot of what happened last season with the Yankees, with Aaron Boone as more of an analytics-driven manager, and revealed that he's fed the statistics by the analytics department, by the Yankees in the tunnel, and then he implements his decisions based on the analytics. So in a way, these managers aren't analytics knowledgeable, they're analytics driven. And that may be an excuse to them. In my mind, I've cast my judgment on Gabe Kapler before he was hired as a manager of the Phillies. I used to listen to him be a frequent guest on the Jim Rome show, and he's an idiot. He's a clown. He was, at that point, he was a color commentator for the Angels, I believe. I'm shocked that he got a job as a manager. But again, when you're being led by the nose, by the numbers, are you really a manager, or are you just a stooge?
I mean, you're still a manager, but end of the day, if I'm going to be a manager and I am going to work with the analytics department, then I'm going to learn about the analytics so I can talk the talk. Right. I mean, that's just the way it is, or I'm not taking the job. And that's me. I know other people may feel differently. Also, one other thing. So with the shift, I saw something, Mark Simon wrote it on Twitter. He's with The Athletic. And I'm always interested in the shift, because I don't believe it should exist in the way that it does. We used to see it back in the old days. There was one for Kluszewski. There was one for Dave Kingman. And every once in a while, there'd be a shift for a certain player. Now there's a shift every other at bat. The problem that I have is I don't think you should be able to go over more than one position. So if you're a third baseman, you shouldn't be able to go more than shortstop. If you're a second baseman, you shouldn't be able to go more than first or beyond short. I think this just goes past what the guys who, invented the game basically were thinking about when they did it. And I also think that in a way it does hurt the game. And now if we want to talk about, this era, like this is some of the great pitchers of the era, you have to bring the shift into it, because that is what's killing a lot of hits and average in this era.
Yeah. And I mean, I made the point that there is a very easy way for the shift to be adjusted to, but hitters don't want to adjust to it. They're sort of locked in, like you said, locked into one particular swing. And we're not talking about ancient history when guys like Don Mattingly and Wade Boggs and Keith Hernandez and Derek Jeter would hit the opposite way. And if you're a left-handed batter and they're shifting everybody to the right side of second base, then drop a bunt or hit one down the third base line. Yeah. After a while, they're not going to shift, because you proved you can hit the other way.
You say that, we say that. I don't know if that's entirely true, because they're so married to it that I think you would have to beat it like 3 or 4 consecutive at-bats before it happens, and no player has the guts to do it. That's really I saw Brandon Nimmo's getting close, and he's actually squaring to bunt more than most to attempt that, but he still didn't make it happen. So
and you don't have to be a great bunter. If you get it by the pitcher, it's a base hit.
Right.
And if you bunt it correctly, you probably get a double if you're not like ridiculously slow. All right, let me just, and I won't go long on this, and then we can start talking about the games last.
How long? That has to do with what you're talking about. It's a pun. Going long.
Okay.
Yeah, come on, Mike. You don't even realize your brilliance sometimes.
Well, most misunderstood geniuses don't. Okay. I'm a fan of the NFL. I'm a fan of the Bills. I look forward to the draft, even though the draft is fairly boring, and that's going to come up in a little over a week. I look forward to the games during the season, but I look forward to them more now to get together with friends rather than like the game itself.
Get your overpriced pizza and wings, complain about it, and see how the Bills draft.
I understand the obsession with some fans about the NFL. But what I don't understand, and I understand the need for radio stations to fill content, to talk about things. But in the last week, the most inane, ridiculous, utterly stupid content on radio, and I'm sure it's in every market in the NFL, is looking at and trying to predict the NFL schedule, who's going to be the opener, who are the games going to be on Monday night and Thursday night. Do you have lives? Because honestly, why would you waste a minute of it debating this crap?
It does blow me away too, because it's like, well, hold on. It's a situation where you're talking about my team. I don't know what I took in the draft. I don't know who is going to be injured. I don't know a lot of what's going on yet in this upcoming season, and you're already predicting the schedule. It's like, stop. It's a bridge too far. It's always been a bridge too far, but sports radio falls victim of that, and I don't think most fans want to hear it. I think there's a percentage, and I think it's just time filler, and I think they should come up with something more interesting.
Maybe for a segment of 5 minutes, like saying, okay, who do you think the Bills are going to open with?
Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. But to predict who's going to be on Thursday night or Monday night
game, like, hey, who are the Bills going to open with? Hey, that game against the Jets, December 15th, that could be a really good game. Fine, yeah, but you don't need to start going through all the wins and losses that are not even going to be close.
Well, when the schedule comes out, you're analyzing how it lines up for the team. I get that. That's content that you can talk about for a couple hours. But to debate when the Bills are going to play the Dolphins or what games are going to be on network TV. Get a life, for Christ's sake. Okay.
Right. Way to end it on a positive note. Thanks.
There you go. In this season of religion, I throw Christ's name into it. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, April 17th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, let's talk about the two games that didn't eliminate teams. We'll do that first because we're going to go over, do sort of a post-mortem on the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Pittsburgh Penguins, who were eliminated last night. First, the game that we watched, I think, throughout, Russ, Winnipeg and St. Louis. Before the playoffs started, I said this could be the closest of the 8 series. Mm-hmm. And it has lived up to its billing, because after St. Louis wins the first 2 in Winnipeg,
I think the Jets in 7, so I agreed with you on that as far as closeness.
Yeah, the Jets came back and played really great in game 3. This was a really tight affair, but as the game went along, even after Tarasenko scored the power play goal, I wasn't worried about the Jets not being able to tie up the game. They did, and I think they dominated the last part of the third period. And then in the overtime, I thought they were the better team, and they win 2-1 on a Kyle Connor goal. I'm not saying that the Jets are going to now run the table, but they have the advantage after coming back and winning 2 in St. Louis and going back home.
Yeah, they were the better team there, but goaltending was great. Like, Bennington was excellent. Mm-hmm. So was, Clutterbuck.
Yes.
They were both really good. And so we just saw a more determined Jets team. I saw some very bad in-studio coverage with Keith Yandel, who in between every break, all he could basically say was, well, it's going to end on like a weird bounce or a funny bounce. And it's like, that is not analysis. Like, please show me some plays, circle some things, say boom if you have to, but at least show me something. Instead of just saying the game's going to probably end on a freakish bounce, because we all know that could happen.
That's the second most tired take in the playoffs, too. Remember that save, because that might be the difference. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to criticize other people commentating on, but yeah, I mean, honestly, I've seen some broadcasts that have left a lot to be desired, but I won't specify who or what or what.
I mean, I'll tell Keith Yandel, stick to hockey. That's fine.
Right. Yes, I agree.
I have no problem doing that.
Oh no. And there are others as well. I mean, NBCSN, can you get somebody who's not a former or current player who actually has an intelligent take? Because I mean, most of your in between period and analysis, leaves a little to be desired.
Anyway. A little more. We're just looking for a little more. It's not too much to I heard these things in the 70s when I was growing up. I would hope that I get a little more nowadays. That's all, and I do get it on some broadcasts, but I'm just telling you the one I didn't. But as far as that series, this series has a long way to go. Bo Meester played a great game. I got to tell you, he's totally resurrected from the time we talked about him. Mm-hmm. Something clicked in at, I want to say late, really, in the second half, and he's kept it going, and that's really helped him besides the goaltending, besides Tarasenko waking up, besides all of those things. So it's a good series to still watch, for sure.
What I was impressed with, and we'll talk about this with Peter next time he's on the show, which I think is tomorrow, the line that made the difference for me in that, I mean, obviously, Wheeler, Connor, and Scheifele is an incredible line, and the top line for the Blues is great as well. The line that I thought made a difference for a number of shifts was the fourth line for Winnipeg of Kopp and Brandon Tanev. And Adam Lowry, they're good enough to play more than 10 minutes. They commissioned Bang, and Tanev had a breakaway chance that he hit that Binnington made a nice save on, and they hit the crossbar. They got chances. They were, I think they're better than the Blues fourth line. If it comes down to depth, that line could make a difference later in the series.
Yeah, I agree. I think that could be a difference maker. Blake Wheeler had the game of his life yesterday. Like, he blocked a shot, looked like he could be hurt. I believe he scored a goal. My eyes were fluttering there for a while, but I think he scored, right?
Right.
And that was just a tremendous game for Blake Wheeler. And boy, he's come a long way. I put stuff up on Twitter about him getting traded around and such. And, I get why he left the Coyotes. Like, I don't know what the Coyotes' offer was. Nobody ever found out, I don't think, what that offer was. But clearly, whatever the offer wasn't good enough for him to stay with that team that I guess he felt like wasn't going to win. And then, with the Bruins, there's all kinds of different takes. I'm not going to get into it all, but he's really turned into a hell of a player. And my whole point about a lot of these players is, and we'll talk about it more when we get to Columbus, is a lot of these guys, you may start them at 20, 21, but it's really not until they're 24, 25 till you're starting to see their best play.
Yeah.
And the teams that stick with those guys the longest are the teams that really reap the rewards.
Now, the other game, the other late game, which I saw some of, and then it was not much in doubt at the time that I basically closed my eyes and went to sleep, was the Vegas Golden Knights and San Jose. And I have to say, we're not a broken record here, but again, 2 goals on 7 shots for Martin Jones. They yank him. They put in Aaron Dell. I think the goaltending has killed San Jose, but I also think San Jose really hasn't played as good as a lot of people thought. Carlson, Russ, I think is a shadow of his former self. He's not. He must still be injured, because he did sit out, I think, 2 or 3 weeks before the.
And we talked about it before the playoffs started, and we were like, well, we're assuming that he's going to be at full strength. He looked okay heading into the playoffs, but now everything's ratcheted up in the playoffs, and he doesn't look okay.
Yeah, and I mean, and we expected Fleury to be Fleury, and he hasn't had to hasn't needed to stand on his head like he did last year. But I'll tell you the difference making line, and we talked about this before the playoffs, was Stone, Pacioretty, and Stastny, and they scored all 6 goals in the game in Game 3. They were again really dominant last night. And San Jose doesn't have an answer for it.
I don't know if a lot of teams are going to have an answer for it. Those two, Stastny and Stone, I think, are 2 of the 3 top scorers in the playoffs right now. I only know this because they're on my fantasy team. But and I traded for Stastny. By the way, the guy who traded Stastny to me this year, thanks, buddy. But the thing is, when you look at this team, the pickups were great. We were worried that, hey, Fleury might not be Fleury. He has been. Jones, I thought, could get it back, and he did get it back, and then he lost it again. And so I don't know if it's all on Jones, if it's a combination of the defense not being great and Jones, because I'll tell you, they've got some bad luck too. Last night, Aaron Dell went to make this great glove save high. The puck caroms out of his glove. It almost goes basically like a pinball return, goes right to a player, goes right in the net. Like, what are the odds of that really happening? Like, it's just those are the kinds of things that are happening to the Sharks right now. I don't know what it's going to take to get past that, and they may not. And again, I do want to preface any selections we make. Nobody gets them all right. We're not geniuses. Like, I got a guy on Facebook who's like, "Well, you got the Islanders wrong." I'm like, "Yeah, I did. Get over it."
Yeah,
I tell every fan for all these other things. We give you analysis. We make picks to make it interesting. I prefer to just give analysis, but I know why everybody wants to do predictions, and that's fine. We don't get them right most of the time. Tough luck.
Yeah, of the 2 series that are completed, I think probably 95% of the experts out there are 0-1 because everybody picked Tampa. Of course, there's going to be the odd. Well, I picked Columbus.
Right.
Wonderful for you. It's like everybody likes to like, oh, this team's got a chance, so let's throw. But did anybody think that Tampa was going to lose to Columbus? No. And I think it was probably a 50-50 proposition when it came to the Islanders and Pittsburgh. I took Pittsburgh. I thought that their championship credentials were going to carry, and that the Islanders were not going to be able to score a lot. And they didn't score a lot, but Pittsburgh scored less. So let's start with that.
Here's the typical thing. So like Lord wrote, I'm going to give you his quote. I did see one awful decor, but that wasn't Vegas, as Russ told us. Vegas's defense is still not great, guys. This is not all cured. Don't think their defense is completely cured. It's not.
No, their defense is Marc-Andre Fleury. That's what their defense is. They have players who skate in the defensive position, but they're not particularly great. I mean, they're good, they're competent, but they're not great. They're not as good as other playoff teams' blue lines are. So that is definitely the chink in their armor. But they have the guy between the pipes who can stone the other team. So that's worth its weight in gold. Now, okay, start with Islanders and Pittsburgh. The Islanders. I mean, it was a 2-1 game for most of the third period, and then the Islanders scored the empty netter to ice it away. Like I said, I picked Pittsburgh. I'm a little surprised at the lack of. I mean, really, Crosby was not impactful in this entire series. Matt Murray was, I think, average at best. There was I thought Malkin, you could see he was trying, but there was not a lot of success in the offensive chances that the Penguins had. And in the end, the Islanders, they out-hit them, they out-goaltended them, they outscored them. So they deserve the credit. They advanced to the second round. No, just what do you think about the Islanders? Then we'll look at the Penguins.
I mean, the Islanders dominated them. I mean, that was something where I thought the Penguins could raise their level. I get that people saw the flaws in the Penguins, like many of us did in the regular season, but sometimes teams can get past those flaws. Just look at the Toronto Maple Leafs as an example right now. So I thought some of the guys on the Penguins could raise their level. They didn't. So then their flaws on defense did show. So then Matt Murray did have a little bit harder time because the shots were just coming fast and furious, and they were getting in on him quickly. So that does make a difference. The Islanders, some unheralded guys, like I was on with Scott Laughlin today, and he asked me about the Pelech and Pulock, and that's really been a great pairing. And actually, Pulock really doesn't get credit for his defense or the aggression / physicality that I always knew that he had in his game, because he's got a 100-mile-an-hour slap shot. And Pelech's that guy. Both of them are big. Both of them skate really well. Nobody talks about Pelech because he does a good job. He's one of those guys that you're not really going to talk about him for any other reason, but he does a good job. Mayfield I've talked about a lot because I've covered him a lot. So that one's been a bit obvious. But again, Robin Lehner has helped immeasurably, and I don't know if Lou Lamoriello knew when he signed Robin Lehner that he was getting this Robin Lehner. So that's worked out great. That's made everybody look smarter. Barry Trotz looks smarter, and Trotz has done a great job. I mean, again, we've talked about it when Mayfield told me early in the season what their game plan was. They've stuck to it, and it's worked. I thought they'd run out of gas. There were definitely some games where they were wobbly a little bit, but Pittsburgh just couldn't do anything about it. They never had enough time and space. The Islanders took it all away. Jordan Eberle is now sort of woken up to the point where he was maybe 2-3 years ago as he sniffs a new contract. And that's really helped too, because Brock Nelson has done well too. Brock Nelson has stepped up too. Both those guys are in their contract year, and now they are putting out in the playoffs. The bad part for the Islanders is they are going to have quick negotiations with these guys to see what they're going to do with them, because they're not going to be easy signs, I don't think.
Eberle's always been a clutch player internationally, like in the World Junior, things of that nature, and he never really has had a chance in the Stanley Cup playoffs until this opportunity, and he's shown that he's a clutch player once again. I have to say, because there were a lot of fans in Buffalo who were bemoaning the fact that Lehner had such a great year. You have to realize that the Robin Lehner that's playing right now is not the same Robin Lehner that was in Buffalo. If he was, it stayed in Buffalo, there's no way, unless Barry Trotz had been hired.
The Robin Lehner we saw for a year or two in Ottawa, and then it went away.
Yeah, but it was off and on. It was never consistent, because Ottawa's defense wasn't that good either, and he was young and immature, and he had sort of. I mean, and you saw Pittsburgh try to get under his skin yesterday too. I think it was Hornquist. Started slashing each other. They were trying to get Lehner to lose his composure, and he didn't. So that was the last straw when it came to him. But okay, let's switch to the Penguins, because first I don't perceive a chance that they fire Sullivan.
No.
So I don't think there's going to be a change.
I know we talked about at some point this year, we sort of shot it down, and rightly so.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a change in goal. Matt Murray is 24 years old and has won 2 Stanley Cups. So I don't think there's going to be a change there. Looking at their defense, Russ, Letang, Schultz, Dumoulin, Gabranson, Jack Johnson, all under contract. Same with Oli Mata, who ended the year uninjured reserve, or injured, excuse me. Pettersson is a restricted free agent.
Yeah, I think they'll sign Pettersson, though.
Yeah, they will. But I think this is an area, because Dumoulin was hurt at the end of the year and came back for the playoffs and did not play particularly well when he was in there. This is an area where I think that they're going to need to upgrade.
No question. First thing I would do would be to just salary dump out Oli Mata. He's not the same player. He had his moment. Maybe he'll do better with another team. He looks pretty terrible. Just salary dump him out. Get anything you can for him, a draft pick, whatever, and move on and get the cap savings. Move out Phil Kessel, same thing. He's got a reasonable number. Somebody will take him. Yeah. They've got to make a savings there. Don't get rid of Malkin. Then they're not going to do that. And that is ridiculous, because then you're talking about, like you said to me off air, your next guy is Nick Bjugstad possibly as your number 2 center. Like, come on.
This is the same argument. We'll talk about the Leafs a little bit later. This is the same argument in terms that's being made over the last few days about not trading Nazem Kadri when you're coming in Toronto. The one advantage that this team had or has is their center depth. And if you look at the organizational depth past Tavares, Matthews, and Kadri, it's virtually nil. It's Freddie Gauthier and Adam Brooks with the Marlies, but they're not a deep organization in terms of players up the middle. William Nylander can't play up the middle according to Babcock, and Patrick Marleau is 40 years old. So it does not make any sense for the Leafs to trade Nazem Kadri, especially when his value may be lower because of 2 suspensions and 2 playoffs. In the Pittsburgh case, why in the hell would you trade Malkin? I mean, you can trade Kessel now. Kessel is coming off a great regular season. He's still young enough where he can score. He's got 3 years left at $6.8 million, which compared to other wingers is a pretty reasonable price. He's been somebody he's played, I think, ever since the shoulder injury when he joined the Leafs in like 2009 or 2010, he's played every game. So he's durable. Kessel makes the most sense. Plus, Gensel's contract kicks into gear next year. So that's an additional like $6 million. Even with the cap going up, they're not going to have a ton of cap space. So I could very easily see Phil Kessel traded.
Yeah, no question. I could see that too. And then they have to do a few other things because it's not like they have a lot coming up from the farm. There's going to be a little bit of a gap now with Penguins from the farm to the big club or farm to table, however you want to put it. And so they're going to have to be interesting moves that they make. They're going to have to be very thrifty. They're going to have to possibly trade draft picks to get what they want. They're going to have some signing money because if you can get rid of Kessel, you can get rid of Mata, and the cap goes up, you'll be able to get a couple players. And then you'll see. I mean, again, it's not a guarantee because we're not even talking about all four lines being strong anymore. We're not. So the window is rapidly closing on this team until we see otherwise.
And you can't really you can't really depend. I mean, they traded Sprong.
Yep.
They brought in Pettersson, so he's a younger defenseman, and he's played pretty well for them. So that was a fairly equal trade. But your window is whatever years are left where Crosby and Malkin are elite. So
right. I think it's still a while, but what I can envision happening with this team if they don't make the right moves in the offseason, and that's not on Rutherford. At this point, this is a hard thing for anybody to do, as you know. They might have to take a step back like Chicago and get a really good draft pick this year and then go at it again the year after. Like that may be what ends up happening. But as an example, nobody in last year's draft is going to help them this year. Nobody in the year before his draft is going to help him next year. Gustafsson might have, but guess what? Gustafsson, is in Ottawa now. So they don't really have anybody. Kasper Borquist, they didn't sign him. Is he going back to Providence? He might. He looked good. I've seen him. But chances are he's not helping them. So, Dominic Simone is already helping them in Sprong. Like that's, we've gone back now to the 2015 draft. I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, some players still might develop out of that. They have a few others, but nobody who's going to help them next year. So right now, that's where the talent gap is for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And so right now, it's not looking great for them.
Yeah, I think the only young piece that they could probably trade in a deal that would bring back something is if somebody believes that Tristan Jarry can be a number one goaltender in the NHL. And that, I don't know if anybody believes that, and maybe they think he can be a number two, but I mean, they have Murray and they have Casey DeSmith, but you have to worry about Murray's lack of durability and needing another goaltender just in case, because he gets hurt every single year. So, yeah. But I think there'll be some changes. I don't think there'll be tweaking moves. I think it will be Kessel that'll be dealt. And I've said this, many times before. If I had to pick a place where Kessel was going to get traded, it would probably be Arizona because Rick Tocchet was the Kessel whisperer in Pittsburgh as an assistant coach. And, they need consistent scoring and somebody with their injury history that's durable, and Kessel is durable. So I think he would be a good fit in Arizona.
Okay, he'll play golf. Like there's no mistake.
Yeah, he can play golf every day. That's the thing. He'll love it there. Now the stunning, Columbus and Tampa Bay. I mean, we knew this was coming because Columbus was up 3-0, but Tampa showed a little bit of fight in that game. But when it came down to it, and Bobrovsky made some really big saves in the third period, and I think that the analysis is pretty correct that Columbus sort of physically dominated Tampa Bay later in this series. Tampa was wounded by some injuries. I mean, Hedman clearly wasn't right from the very beginning of the series. Neither was Stralman. But those are excuses. This is a team that was the President's Trophy winner. This is a team that won 62 victories. Nobody picked Columbus. No one. And
I agree.
Yeah, and Tampa, I think after that first period in game one, where they're up 3-0, they thought it was going to be easy. They let the guard down. Columbus came back and won that game. And then as we saw Russ in game two on Friday, they get down 1-0, they get down 2-0, and all of a sudden they're like, uh-oh, we're in trouble here.
Yep.
And they never regained footing in that series. So
right now, I give full marks again to Jarmo Kekalainen. I know you raised your hand when you still don't like what they did, but when I asked it on the question on Twitter, who would raise their hand and say they don't like what he did? But you know what? I still support it. It was rough going, but they made the playoffs. Now they got passed around, which is something they've never done in the history of the team, which was big for the fan base, big for attendance, big for revenue. Because now they get another round of playoff revenue. Those things were massive. And the fact that they are loaded with prospects meant that they could do it. Texier is a great example. They've thrown him in now, and he's going to be around for the next 10 years. So, and he's an excellent skater, man. That guy could skate, and he's got great stick and puck control. Great pick. They have a lot of picks like that. So we got to give Bob credit. Bob really played his ass off. He made some amazing saves late in that game yesterday. That was great. We have to give credit to some of the guys that they did get. It took a little while, but they did finally gel, and that was big too. We also I want to give credit to Oliver Borkstrand. Again, another guy who was a tremendous scorer in junior. Tremendous. Took a little while in the NHL. Smaller guy. Had to get stronger. Maybe even had to get faster. Did all those things. Now at the age of 24, had 23 goals this year. Now he's starting to win games, starting to have a clutch ability to put some games in, put some big goals in, like Jason Zucker. The patient teams that wait for guys like this get rewarded.
Yeah, he made up for the drop in play of Wenberg, who just completely disappeared this year, and
he fell off the map.
Yeah, took a big step back, and he's. I don't even know if he's a black ace right now. I'm not sure where he is right now. I haven't heard his name mentioned in weeks.
We'll talk about Tampa. The big things for me on Tampa is they've got three guys they've got to get rid of on defense. I don't know all their salary situation, but Braden Coburn's got to go. Dan Girardi's got to go. Who's the third I'm thinking of?
Anton Strawman. Well,
Strawman.
Here are the salaries. Strawman is a 4.5. He's a UFA. Coburn 3.7. Girardi 3. And Jan Ruda, who they picked up as a depth guy at the deadline, was 2.25.
Yeah, he might stay. That's fine. Whatever.
Well, only at a significantly less salary. Right. Now, this is the thing, and I know that there was some criticism out there about them potentially firing John Cooper. It's not happening. I'm sorry. If it does, I will be absolutely stunned. You really can't fire him. I mean, if they start off the year bad next year, okay, but you just signed him to a contract extension, and he just had 62 wins. I mean, you can't.
I would fire him.
I know you would.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. Because we saw early on in the series what Torts' game plan was going to be, and it was going to be to be physical, annoy them, get in their kitchen, and they had no answer for it. They didn't skate faster to skate around it. They didn't try and tough their way out of it. They didn't do anything. Cooper didn't do anything. Tell me that, again, we talked about the players that didn't score. I get it. But tell me what adjustments John Cooper made in this series that made a difference. He didn't do anything.
Well, I mean, the problem is I don't know what he could do with the line. That was a pure skill team. Sorry, let me just hang this up.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you one example of what I would do. During a timeout, I would look at guys like Stamkos, and I'd be like, you know what, Steve? I know it's not your game. Go out there and hit a guy in the mouth. We need to do that right now because we've lost our mojo, and we've got to do something. And that started in the first game when they were up 3-0. They thought they were going to coast and win that game, and not only did they not win that game, they didn't win the series. They lost the series probably in that game. Now, it's crazy to think about with a team like that, as good as they are, that they may have lost the game, that they lost the series when they were up 3-0 in the first game. In that game, may have cost them the whole series, but I think it did.
Now they have crash and bang guys. They have guys who will play physically.
Mhm.
Like Callahan, who's an older guy, but
Adam Ernie can play that way.
JT Miller, Killorn does, Gord does to an extent, or Adam Ernie. But I think Columbus was a bigger team. They were definitely playing a more aggressive style. They didn't react to it well, and they never recovered.
Why was Callahan sitting those first couple of games? Was he hurt?
I mean, he's been hurt the last couple of years. So I mean, I don't
know if he was hurt for those games. Then all of a sudden, they did pop him in when they were losing the physical battle, but they probably figured we don't need Ryan Callahan.
Right, and based on the fact they were up 3-0 in game one, at that point they didn't. But then they let that big team, back in that game. They lost that game and then lost the momentum. I mean, I don't think they will fire Cooper. I don't think that's the move. That's
post game.
Yes, I did.
He said it would be a blemish on the great year they had. A blemish? Really? That's it? In his mind, it's a blemish?
I don't know what you're going to say. I mean, did you see this?
I'll tell you what I would say.
Wait. Did you see this statement that the Lightning released like soon after the loss? It was like, I don't think it was, Julian Brisebois who wrote it. It was the PR department, and it was sort of pap. It was just like, I mean, nobody wants to hear that. You'd be better off not write a statement and let the GM and let the coach and let the players talk at locker clean out rather than make a statement and release a statement to the press.
I agree. I'm just saying right now, if you want to talk about with this team, I look at John Cooper and I would say blemish is not the word.
No.
It's more than a blemish. We were embarrassed. Say it. We were embarrassed. We had higher expectations. We failed. I didn't hear Cooper say any of that because he's very stubborn and he's had a good regular season record, but they're on the same downswing that the Rangers got on after they made it to the Stanley Cup. And they even got back to the conference finals again, but then McDonough hurt his foot and they didn't, right? They're on a similar roller coaster right now. They are.
Yeah, but I think, we knew that there were going to be changes with the Lightning after this season, whether they won the cup or whether they got swept in the first round. Now, they got swept in the first round, so I think the moves that they will make will be, I think, more determinative of the direction they're going to go in next year. Now, we talked about the 3 defensemen. If you look at what their defense is going to be like next year, it'll be Hedman, it'll be McDonough. Sergachev is in the final year of his ELC. They have Eric Cernak, who's been a pretty good.
He's been really good.
Pretty good discovery, and as a bottom pairing guy, he's a lot better than Andre Schuster. So, so maybe they bring one of those 3 veteran guys, but they could move away from all 3 of them. And we know that Cal Foote, who played in Syracuse this year, might be ready to make the jump to the NHL after 2 years or a little over, actually about a year and a quarter in the American Hockey League. So I think that they'll be out on the lookout for another defenseman, maybe via trade, and that's where I think you're going to see Ryan Callahan probably moved out in the final year of his contract, with teams looking for to get to the cap floor. A team like the Rangers might be a perfect fit for that, unless they go out in free agency and go after Carlson and Panarin and don't have the room.
Right.
But we talked about this all year. They're going to have to re-sign Braden Point, and probably guys like Palat or Tyler Johnson or Killorn are going to get moved. Yanni Gourde's new contract kicks in, and Point's probably going to make in the neighborhood of what Stamkos and what Kucherov, whose contract is kicking in next year, are going to make. So they're going to have to make tough decisions and tough moves.
Okay, let's make some tough decisions. Let's go over the time on the ice. So Callahan got 9:38. Do you think they should have maybe early in that game played a guy like Callahan a lot, because he does play a greasy, effective game? Maybe. Cirelli got 21 minutes. Clearly, that's one of his favorites. He had some shorthanded goals this year. He is fast. So he's got the Cooper right there. That's where a guy's playing favorites, because Matthew Joseph, who's just as fast, if not faster, played 8 minutes. Right. So you go start looking at some of these guys. JT Miller played 9 minutes. So it's like you've already shortened.
Now there you go.
There.
JT Miller is somebody they signed for $5.25 million. If he's going to play 8 minutes, then you're probably more likely to trade that. If you're choosing between Tyler Johnson and JT Miller to trade, and you're factoring in Cooper's usage of the player, it's JT Miller you're going to trade and not Johnson.
And Paquette played 10 minutes, so obviously he's gone too.
Well, no, I mean he's only $1 million player, so he's not big money. So they'll probably keep him around. But they're going to have to move out probably 2 salaries to accommodate Braden Point getting re-signed.
And by the way, so game before, Adam already played. He had 3 shots. He was an even guy. Where again there were a lot of other guys. Stamkos was a minus. He got 9 minutes. If you're not going to play a guy real minutes, then don't play him. Play somebody else. If you're going to play somebody, it's like – but I will say this. That game was a 3-1 game, and the minutes were a lot better distributed. This game, they weren't, and that's panic. And I'm telling you right now, John Cooper panicked in this game. He pulled the goalie very early. I don't care what the final score is because that's – there were a couple empty netters. But this was a poorly coached game. It really was. It was a poorly played game. But it was also a poorly coached game. And again, on defense, Ryan McDonough didn't do well, but he got loaded down with minutes. He played 23 minutes in the 2 games ago, and let's see how many he played yesterday. And he's been less effective as the series went on. Like, we saw that. It's craziness. I mean, this is why I don't care if I gave the coach an extension. I'll have him be a scout for me or something else, or maybe he'll get another job and I won't have to pay him anything. But he's not coaching my team anymore.
Okay, you think he should be fired? Yes. But do you think he will be?
I think there's a chance.
Yeah.
Last game, right? Ryan McDonough played 24-35. He was a -4. You can't play Ryan McDonough 24 minutes. I'm sorry. There is a limit.
You had to because you didn't have Hedman. He was your number 1 defenseman.
Cernak played 23.5 minutes. Like, come on. Sergachev, 18 minutes. Like, he could have played a couple more minutes. Rutsa, 17 minutes.
I'm sorry. He didn't have much option with Hedman and Stralman out. That's what I'm saying.
Well, then he should have worked in other players during the year, or he should have come up with a different solution because this solution wasn't a good solution.
Well, they weren't. See, that's the thing. They weren't prepared for things to go wrong because nothing went wrong during the season. They
weren't prepared. There was no backup plan.
Right, because plan A worked so well. Nobody in their right mind thought they were going to lose to Columbus, let alone get swept. So, do I think he faces a lot of criticism, a lot of second guessing? Sure. Do I think he's going to get fired? No, because I don't think it's solely the contract extension. I think it's the fact that the guy, they were the most successful team in recent memory during the regular season and just crapped out in the playoffs. They
have problems. They have cap problems. They have player personnel problems.
Is this something that you think Steve Yzerman bailed on a year early because he knew this was happening?
No. I think that was all personal. And look, he's still there. We don't know what's going to happen in July. Right now, he's still a part of the franchise, but just not in the same role. I think you look at these guys on defense, and those 3 guys that I mentioned have to go. And you've got to replace them with faster, better talent. That's not going to be easy. Then you're going to have to manage the cap because you've paid Kucherov. You're going to have to pay Point. Now you're going to have to trade Tyler Johnson. You're going to have to work in other guys. They have other guys. We've talked about some of their other guys. But the problem is, I don't know if the mix of guys is right now. They got a lot of Cooper guys. Cooper hockey isn't winning like it used to, Mike. And that's where you have to look at this as an owner and say, John Cooper, are you going to change the way you're doing this? Because if you're going to continue to play these same kinds of guys and get me the same results, I can't have you coach for me.
Yeah, well, they're going to have internally guys like Foote, Volkov, Mitchell Stevens, Taylor Radish, Boris Kachuk. They're going to have these guys coming up through the organization along with the young guys that they have like Cirelli and like Matthew Joseph. So, there's going to be a natural evolution with that team because they're so deep in talent.
They traded away defensemen over the years. Slater Cuckoo, they traded them away and kept these older guys, these older Rangers, Flyers guys, and they didn't do it.
Because they thought this was the way that they were going to make a run for the cup with experienced guys. And I know that some people were pointing out, this team had no Stanley Cup winning experience. You had guys who were in the Stanley Cup final. You had guys like McDonough and Callahan or McDonough and Girardi. So, I mean, I think that's a little bit over. And Strawman. I think it was a little overstated. But you can say also maybe Julien Brisebois deserves a little bit of fault for this because they didn't mess with this lineup at the deadline. They didn't make any kind of additions when they had an opportunity to.
Yeah, sometimes the 94 Rangers definitely had overkill as far as how many trades they made, and even I as a fan felt like they went too far, but it worked for them. You can make that argument. I think that's a fair argument. We do have breaking news. I mean, it's not massive, but I did get an email with all the King Clancy guys.
Oh, yeah.
Let me go on the list real quick.
Okay.
I think it's worthy of doing. So for Anaheim, Cam Fowler. For the Coyotes, OEL. For the Bruins, Chara. For the Sabres, Eichel. For the Flames, Giordano. For Carolina, it's Falk. For the Blackhawks, it's Crawford. Landeskog for Colorado. Foligno for Columbus. Klingberg for Dallas. Howard for Detroit. Draisaitl for the Oilers. Luongo for Florida. Foley for LA.
Let me do the second half.
Yep. Zucker for Minnesota.
Yep.
And Domi for the Habs.
Okay, Nashville, Pekka Rinne, New Jersey, Kyle Palmieri, the Islanders, Anders Lee, Henrik Lundqvist for the Rangers, Mark Borowiecki for his insightful broadcasting of the Eugene Melnyk press conference for Ottawa, Claude Giroux for Philadelphia, Matt Murray for Pittsburgh, Brendan Dillon for San Jose, Ryan O'Reilly for St. Louis, Ryan Callahan for Tampa Bay, Zach Hyman for Toronto, Alex Edler, Vancouver, Derek England, Vegas, Tom Wilson, Washington.
That's great.
That's hilarious. And Brian Little for Winnipeg.
Think about this, because the King Clancy is the player who best exemplifies leadership qualities on and off the ice that has made a noteworthy humanitarian contribution. Now, is Wilson a leader? Yes. But there's other things he does on the ice that may,
Yeah, I'm sure Oscar Sundqvist and Zach Aston Reese will quibble about his contributions to humanity because they're human and he almost killed them on the ice. So, okay, 3 games tonight. Flames, Avalanche. Avalanche are up 2-1. Question marks about the Flames goaltending still persist. This will be a big game if the Flames can win. They tie it 2-2 going back to Calgary. Predators up 2-1, game 4 in Dallas. Again, Dallas needs to win at home to even the series. Pretty close series. Again, this is one I haven't watched a lot, but I'll probably get a little bit more of a chance to watch it tonight because there's only one game competing against it. And that one game is Toronto and Boston, game 4. And Russ, I said before we started, and I'll say it here, and I'll say it in my blog later on Hockey Buzz. If Toronto wins this game, I think they'll win the series. And if they lose this game, I think they'll lose the series because they lose it. It's 2-2 going back to Boston for game 5. I think Boston's going to try to do what they did in game 2 and play a lot more physically. They're going to probably have to hope that the referees don't call as many ticky-tack calls as they did in game 3. If they can get away with their physicality, then they'll have the advantage on Toronto, who did not react well to it in game 2. Toronto played the game that they played in game 1 and game 3 using speed, stretch passes, etc. Freddie Anderson played really well. But they're going to need to limit the Bergeron line, which they've done for the most part in the first 3 games. They did break out in game 2 when Cassidy was able to get Bergeron away from Tavares. Tavares will be on Bergeron like white on rice in game 4. So if they win that matchup, the Leafs have a good chance at winning this game. But if it goes 2-2 back to Boston, I fall back on my prediction in the series that Boston eventually will win.
Yeah, Johansson and John Moore back in. That's big for the Bruins. That definitely helps the bottom pair strengthen up a bit. So and we talked about it. That's a place that's definitely a problem for them. And now I'm going to just give you meaningless analysis. Well, if the Bruins just come out there and they punch them in the mouth and they slow down the Leafs, they'll win this game, Mike. They just have to get the right bounces. They just have to play the right way. Is that good?
Yeah. Good
Okay.
generalities. I like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, end of the day, the Bruins really do need to do something about the Leafs' speed. If you remember, when we talked about, even though I thought the Bruins would win the series, I did talk about how to counter that, and that was with the Leafs just outskating them. And so far, that's worked. And that still could work for the Leafs because, again, Chara's not getting any younger, and if they keep piling minutes on Chara, that could be a potential disaster. Now that they've got more in there, that's going to help them a little bit. But the Bruins need more contributions, too, from some of their secondary scoring. They do.
Well, I mean, honestly, the secondary scoring hasn't been the problem. They've gotten 2 goals out of Charlie Coyle.
Right, that's been good. You're right.
They've had some offense out of DeBrusk and Krejci. The problem
isn't secondary scoring anymore. DeBrusk is a top guy for them.
Right. I mean, he's on the top power play, but he's on the second line. Honestly, the problem has been is that the top line that killed the Leafs last year, and I think they had 30 points in 7 games. They have 6 points through 3 games. They've been limited, and to the point that Cassidy, if they can't shake loose today, might move Pasternak down to the second line with Krejci, break them up, and try to break out offensively and create better matchups. I mean, it is a key thing for the Bruins to shake that top line loose. And
I mean, but Marchand's a point a game. Bergeron's got 2 goals, so those guys are not killing them. Krejci is killing them. He's only got 1 point, 1 goal.
Pasternak got an assist. Yeah,
Pasternak definitely could use to step up. McAvoy doesn't have a point. He needs to step up. But again, he is 21 years old. Like, again, there's only so much you can do with a 21-year-old when you start piling on a lot of responsibility. But again, if we start looking at some of the other players, like as an example, I'll tell you a guy who is on my fantasy team, but I don't know why he's still in the lineup for the Bruins, Joachim Nordstrom. He's not scoring a point. He's never scoring a point, which means he'll probably get it tonight. But he had 12 points all year.
Yeah, he's a fourth-line checker. That's all he is.
Right. But at some point, when you need more than that, maybe he shouldn't play. Just as an example.
I mean, the thing is that, and I'm not saying that the reason that the Bruins are down in the series is because of injuries, but a guy like Corrali, who was a pretty good bottom 6 forward for them, hasn't been available to them, and Kampfer and Clifton on the bottom pairing, played essentially 10 minutes a night. So if they can get 10 quality minutes out of Moore, that'll be an upgrade for them. What I was surprised at is in Game 3. After taking that big hit from Muzzin, Torrey Krug led them with 24 minutes. Yeah. And I think, ideally they probably wouldn't want Torrey Krug to play 24 minutes, and probably lob more of the minutes on Carlo, McAvoy, and Chara. But,
okay, so here's a good example. So with McAvoy, Krug, and Chara, you've got 2 points. It's got to be better than that. It's the playoffs. It has to be better than that. This isn't like 1975 where Bobby Orr does all your scoring. Well, not 75, 72, where Bobby Orr does all your scoring and the other guys don't need to score. No, everybody needs to chip in. They're not chipping in.
Now, if the Bruins do come out physically as they did in Game 2, the Leafs have to have a better response. If they do not, if they do get punched in the nose, as we said, they need to respond better than they did in Game 2, which was they cowered in the corner. They really did not respond at all. And, one of the reasons why Kadri ended up losing it in the third period is because he was really the only guy that was sort of fighting back. Him and Zach Hyman were the only guys that were sort of fighting back against what the Bruins were doing.
One other thing came to mind. Remember when I got ripped for saying that I think Grzelcyk's a really good player and, somebody in the chat room ripped me? He's got 2 points. He's got 2 more points than McAvoy right now. Just saying.
Yeah, but McAvoy's a better defense. I mean, I like.
We all know that.
I like Grizzlick. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, and Bill C just said Kevin Miller's out for the playoffs. That really hurts if that's the case.
Oh yeah, I believe. I mean, he hasn't skated in any of the before any of the 3 games, and they haven't been specific in terms of his status. So it sounds like it's an injury that is going to prevent him from playing.
Where's the magic from Bruce Cassidy? We saw it last year. Now this year he's a little more challenged. There's some injuries. Chara's a year older.
Yeah, and
Bergeron can't bail them out forever.
And they're taking Carson Kuhlman out of the lineup tonight for Johansson. That means Backes is still in. So that would lead me to believe that they're going to play a more physical game because Backes is the guy. I think he had 10 hits in game 2. So
Backes has a point in 2 games. You know what? At this point in this Toronto series, I think you do have to play David Backes. I do think they need that little extra physical play. And he did put up a point. Right now, they need every point they can get. And Freddie Anderson's been good. I don't think he's been impenetrable, though.
No, I think he's been solid, and he's made the save when he needed to. I mean, Toronto, honestly, they need the power play to keep doing what they did in Game 3. They got 2 goals. They need somebody other than Tavares and Marner to score, what Matthews did, but it was on the power play. They got something from the 4th line. Their Achilles heel is the 3rd line is terrible, especially with William Nylander playing center. He's not good at the middle. I think he's more of a winger and he's more of a complimentary guy, but they have no choice because Kadri is out. And defensively, Jake Gardner is nowhere close to being the same guy he was before the injury. He only played 14 minutes on Monday. He doesn't look like the same player. He's tentative out there. He's trying to avoid hits. He takes one big hit. I bet you
it's a veteran body out there right now. Like that's really
and that's all you really can ask if he's debilitated. But one good hit from somebody, and it's probably you're going to see either Kali Rosen or Martin Marincin in the lineup. And if it's Marincin, hide the women and children. Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll stop there. We'll be back tomorrow.
I told people I'd answer questions.
Oh, yeah, questions are fine. Cool.
I don't know what your schedule's like. All right. Let's see.
It's really busy.
I mean, I'm busy too, but I know these. They got questions.
Cool.
First one is actually Peter asked me how impossible is it to get Jets Bills tickets on 9/8/19. I said I don't think it's impossible, but I think it'll be hard.
In Buffalo or in New York?
I think that one's in New York.
Well, have they released the schedule? I don't think it's out yet.
I thought it was today.
Yeah, they said this tonight, not this.
Well, sometimes things get leaked.
Well, yeah. They're like certain things are sent out there, and then all of a sudden it comes out in drips and drabs. So yeah, if that's the opener, which usually 9/8 it's usually around Labor Day, and that's usually beginning of September. So that might be the second game.
Nicholas asked, what if the Penguins somehow kept Ryan Reeves? Would he have been able to jumpstart him? Nah, it was really more about the defense and the fact that the forwards had to play so much defense that they weren't as good offensively either, and the Islanders took away their time and space.
Although I'd like to have seen Ryan Reeves be on that team in the conference final last year, or in the second round against Washington, because I don't think Wilson would have had as much of an impact as Reeves would have been there to discourage him.
Lord wants to know where Jan is. I don't know where Jan is. Go find him on Twitter. There you go. He wants to pick on his picks too. Jason asked, would Alex Edler be a good fit for the Flyers? Yeah, he would be. And Vigneault definitely made Edler better, but I don't know if he's leaving Vancouver. No. But that's certainly somebody that Chuck Fletcher should inquire about. I think that's, you're right.
Only if you can get rid of Andrew McDonald's contract.
Yeah. Let's see. Also, a question for Mike. Gostisbehere for Kadri. Flyers get a second-line center. Toronto gets help on the back end. Mike, you doing that trade?
No.
I'm not either if I'm the Leafs. The Leafs can't, it's not that Gostisbehere is not a good get there. The problem is the Leafs don't have an answer for losing Kadri. And to go out on the market and get somebody like that is going to cost them a lot of money.
Yeah, and if you say Nylander, Babcock, does not like Nylander playing center. He doesn't believe in him. If he plays a 40-year-old slowing Patrick Marleau up the middle instead of William Nylander, that tells you he will never play him at center unless he absolutely has to.
Now, Vepsis is trolling and he said, how's it possible a team with Jack Johnson and Gabranson struggles defensively? And look, end of the day, that was the best they could do. And to be honest, Gabranson played pretty well.
Yeah.
Johnson has not played well. We didn't like the Jack Johnson pickup.
I don't understand it to this day.
It is what it is. And it's just a bad pickup.
If it was a 2-year deal, okay, fine. He's a veteran guy like Girardi, 2 years, $3 million per. It was a 5-year deal.
Yeah.
Is it because he's Sidney Crosby's best buddy? Because we've always heard that they were really good friends. I don't know if they're at the same agent or whatever.
Now, Thomas, get this. Thomas is saying, as an Islander fan, I'm hoping the Leafs win because we don't match up well against the Bruins. If the Leafs get to the next round, you don't want to play the Toronto Maple Leafs. You really don't.
They're not. It's not going to reseed if the Islanders win. They play the winner of Carolina, Washington. So you'd have to get through the Caps, and the Leafs would have to get through the Bruins and the Jackets. Let's just say I'm not going to go down that road. That's
no, it's a long road. But if they did match up against them, you don't want that. I would rather play the Bruins than the Leafs because there's still 2 guys with 3 guys, Marner, Tavares, and Matthews, that in any series could beat your team.
And I honestly would like to see the difference in the reaction of the fans at Barclays in a conference final instead of Nassau. I bet you it would not be as loud and boisterous.
Yeah. The Penguins do have – Jason asked if the Penguins still have some assets. They do, but they're like 2-3 years away. They've drafted well the last couple of years, but none of these guys are ready. They've traded away the other guys that were ready for the guys that you just talked about. All right. Shut it down.
Okay. All right. Good show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for listening and watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.